So I was wondering if it would be possible to create a DIY loudspeaker from scratch. And I'm not talking about one of these make your own speaker from a plastic bottle type things. No, I'm talking, can we create an actual proper loudspeaker that can compete with one that is made in a factory from scratch? And so I guess there's only one way to find out. So I decided I wanted to make a two-way speaker system, a speaker with a low-frequency driver in it and also a high-frequency driver. It all started off with making the low-frequency driver, also known as the woofer. And of that woofer, the first component that I made was the cone. So that is the part of a speaker that you see moving back and forth when it's playing a sound. Now this was made out of some nice thick cardboard that I had laying around somewhere. Now this was actually the easy part of the woofer. This was actually very quick to do and very easy actually. Then came something that was much more difficult, or actually not necessarily difficult but very tedious, which was winding the voice coil, which is basically 50 turns of copper wire around this 6cm tube, which took me a very long time, but the result was actually very nice. Then I simply glued this voice coil to the cone of the speaker using some hot glue. Hot glue was one of my best friends during this project, by the way. Then I made a wooden structure to actually hold this cone and voice coil assembly. In a real speaker, the cone is surrounded by a soft material that we call the surround of the speaker. Now the surround is a soft piece of foam or rubber that holds the cone in position, but at the same time, it is soft so that the cone is able to move back and forth. And it was really hard to find something suitable for this, but I ended up using pieces of rubber that I salvaged from balloons, which gave me a surround that is actually very similar to that of an actual speaker driver. That was, I mean, I know it looks very ugly, but it's also very functional. Then I created a wooden frame to which I glued a nice ferrite magnet that I ordered online. And then I simply glued it onto the wooden front, like so. So now we have the magnet inside the voice coil. After that, I soldered the wires of the voice coil to some thicker wires that I connected to the wooden frame, again using some hot glue. So the low frequency driver is now done. Let's move on to the high frequency driver then. Making the high frequency driver started off with a paper template that looked like this, after which I could cut out the pieces of wood and glue them into kind of a horn shaped thingy that looks like this. Then I created another voice coil, which took a very long time once again, but this one is much smaller. I then glued that voice coil to a piece of cardboard, which becomes the cone for this tweeter, and I mounted the whole thing into the horn-shaped thingy, like so, using some tape. Then I created a wooden frame, a tiny wooden frame this time, to which I glued a nice strong magnet, and then I glued the whole thing with the magnet onto the tweeter, like so. And then again I soldered the wires of the coil to some thicker copper wires as well. So now both the tweeter and the woofer have been made, and it's time to build the cabinet or the case for the speaker. Now right now on the screen you can see the dimensions of the case, and you can also see that it's a case with a vent in it, or a tunnel. Now this vent helps amplifying the low frequencies a bit more. The dimensions of this vent are, unlike the horn of the tweeter, which was just kind of a gamble, the dimensions of this vent have been calculated precisely using this website, which is very convenient. You can just type in all your data and it will calculate for you how big your vent needs to be. Very nice. Building the case was very straightforward. It was simply cutting the wood, plywood, into the right size plates and then just gluing and screwing them together like so, which gave me this frame. Then I made the front of the speaker, in which I also cut the holes for the drivers and just mounted the drivers to it, like so. The next step was to mount the front to the case, and this is a very important thing. The front, of course, must not cover up the base vent, otherwise it's no longer a vent. That's important. Then it was time to make the back of the case. So this time it needs to be the entire size of the thing because there is no bass vent on the back. And then also I cut a rectangular hole in the middle in which I mounted a crossover. A crossover is a device that makes sure that high frequency signals get sent to the tweeter and low frequency signals get sent to the woofer. So it makes sure that the right signal goes to the right driver in the case. After that, I connected the crossover to the drivers and closed the back of the case. And then, well, the speaker was done. So now what does it sound like? Well, of course, you will never know what it sounds like because you don't listen to this speaker in person unless you physically come to this place and listen to what the speaker sounds like. So it's really hard to get sound quality of a speaker across in a video. I've attempted to do it. I have recorded a test recording with this microphone, which is pretty good, so you can get a little bit of an impression what it sounds like. But of course, if you really want to judge about the sound quality, you'll have to listen to it in person. Then also, of course, I can only play some uncopyrighted music, some royalty-free stuff, for obvious reasons. So now, without further ado, let's listen to what this DIY speaker actually sounds like. So in conclusion, this speaker doesn't sound absolutely great, it doesn't get that loud with the limited amount of power that I have, and don't get me wrong, that's 65 watts, that's a pretty powerful amplifier for in this small room. So it's not very efficient, it doesn't sound too good, but it does sound quite good for a speaker that is made from just cardboard and copper wire and wood and of course hot glue. So for a DIY project I think this sounds pretty good, but if you want something that actually sounds really good then you should just buy a speaker or at least buy some off-the-shelf drivers. Well anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this video and thank you for watching.